So in this video I'll be having one of the more exciting unboxings on this channel. So if you have already watched me hint a bit in some of my other videos, especially those with 3D printed parcels on them, I think the 3x3x2 one is quite... I did mention that I do want to upgrade my 3D printer. So I was holding off the idea for a while, but then halfway through a print my Ender 2 Pro died. I couldn't power it on again. This box has some parts in it. Yeah, I do remember having similar pieces like when unboxing my Ender 2 Pro. So for those of you who have come here from the 3D print side rather than from the cubing side, just to let you know, this is not a 3D print channel, this is a Rubik's Cube channel. And my knowledge of 3D printers is actually not very deep. There it is, the printer. Okay, I need to be a bit careful so I don't throw away anything useful. Yep, so this is the spool holder. This is for the filament. There's some spare filament. This also came when I got the Ender 2 Pro. So here's a size comparison with my Ender 2 Pro. This is not the original print bed that came with it. Actually, based on the stats I read online, in fact, it's visible from here. I mean, the Bambu Labs A1 print bed is actually slightly bigger than the Ender 2 Pro. I just couldn't cut this one shorter. I couldn't find the right size, so I bought an oversized print bed. But yeah, the reason why I've always been using mini printers is because the main thing I print is Rubik's Cube parts, and this is not a 3D printed cube, but cube parts aren't that big anyway. So I don't need a very big printer to print like huge pieces, and you can make the argument that with a bigger printer you can print more parts. In my opinion, that's actually quite a weak argument. You're still relying on that one nozzle to print everything, so the limiting factor is really how fast the plastic is coming out of the nozzle, which the Bambu Labs can definitely do that faster than the Ender 2 Pro. Also, if you want to do a big print, let's say 24 parts, like the part that I just plugged out just now, this is called the wing on the 4x4, you have 24 copies of that part over the cube, so I'd rather be printing 6 pieces 4 times as opposed to, like, let's say 12 pieces 2 times. Because let's say if one of those 12 piece print goes wrong, then I'm definitely going to end up wasting more plastic, so I also don't really want to launch such big prints anyway. I've been quite satisfied with the performance of my Bambu Labs A1 Mini so far. I might say some negative things about my old printer, but this is not to bash the Creality brand or the Ender 2 Pro like specifically. I do think these issues exist across more than one printer. And if anything, I got the Ender 2 Pro simply because it's one of the better budget printers of its time. But technology has progressed and a bunch of problems that I faced on the Ender 2 Pro has been fixed. So you can kind of think of this comparison as a Shengshu 4x4 versus a Aosu WRM. One of these is the best cube in 2012 and the other one came out in 2020, and I still think it's the second or third best in 2025. So I don't think anyone in the right mind is going to look at these two cubes side by side and say which one should I buy. It's more like if anything, this kind of comparison is to show you the progress over time. And there might be newer Creality printers out there, I just don't have the best knowledge of what are the choices, and I just heard a lot of good stuff about the Bambu Labs A1 Mini and I really wanted to get one. Even actually during the time when I was already using my Ender 2 Pro, I was sort of eyeing this printer. First, this 5x5, this is actually the maglev 5x5 V2, which I'll probably review once I get stickers. Why this 5x5 is so important to the review of my Bambu Labs A1 Mini is because it contains parts like printed by both printers, including the same piece type. So for example, this wing here is actually printed on my Ender 2 Pro, and the other one here, this is the same type of piece, but it's printed on the Bambu Labs A1 Mini. So I can kind of use this cube to do comparisons. So the first improvement I experienced with my Bambu Labs A1 Mini is bed leveling. So for the cubers who don't know what bed leveling is, that's basically the height of the print bed. Vertical column here is the z-axis, and you have to adjust your print bed to be like close enough to the 0 mark where the nozzle will start. Because after it prints the first layer, then it moves up to like from 0 to 1, and then prints the next layer, and then to 2, and then the next layer, and so on. But bed leveling is really what gets your first layer down, and the thing is, first layer is the most important, because if any layer has a problem, basically everything on top is going to get affected. The bed is too high the plastic will have difficulty coming out of the nozzle, and it also causes another issue where the plastic comes out squished. The dimensional accuracy of your part is compromised. If your bed is too low, then the plastic just won't stick to your print bed. Okay, with the Ender 2 Pro, the bed leveling was manual, so what happens is I have to set the height of the Z-axis to 0, and then slide a piece of paper underneath the nozzle and then drag it front and back and test for how much friction is there. There is a specific amount of friction that is ideal, and then I have to adjust all 4 corners of the print bed and then like basically move the nozzle to another corner and then repeat the process on all 4 corners. And the annoying part about that is sometimes when you adjust one corner, it actually affects how tight the remaining corners are, and then you have to go back and readjust them. So it's not just a 4-time readjustment. It could go on for quite long. I'm able to get it done enough to work, but I've definitely experienced all 3 of the issues of like elephant's foot, just the printer getting jammed and plastic not sticking to the print bed. With the Bambu Labs A1 Mini, it's just automated. The printer actually tests the heights every time and adjusts the bed on its own, like at the start, before it begins printing. So this issue is pretty much gone. And think of this as your cube having corner to core magnets that will introduce a pulling force to guide you to align your cube from quite a distance away. The next issue that I got on my Ender 2 Pro was bed adhesion. If you look at this old clip here, you can see how dirty my print bed is on the Ender 2 Pro. I pretty much have residual plastic that I can never remove, and I also even have parts of the print bed that ripped off while I was plucking a piece out. Of course, this is when the adhesion is too strong. The opposite problem when the adhesion is too weak is also an issue as well. So sometimes halfway through a print, something detaches, and the printer won't know this. It will continue to extrude plastic and move in the scripted path, even though there's nothing beneath it, and then it will result in what looks like plastic noodles floating in mid-air. So my fear of mid-print detachment is so bad that it's pretty much the reason why I don't want to print so many pieces at one time, in case something goes wrong and that screws up my whole print. And also I don't want to print unattended. However, on my Bambu Labs A1 Mini, the amount of detachment issues I face is significantly less. And also, when I want to rip parts out of the print bed, it actually came off really clean. Maybe it's because it's new. I do not know if new problems will arise with wear and tear. This is not really a printer issue per se, but it's with the slicer that came complementary with the printer. Like the way it generates support material makes me much more confident that I could print stuff without it detaching halfway. Think of your cube having springs so that it can corner cut. Okay, to be fair, the Shengshou can corner cut as well, but look at how much less it is. Another positive experience I found with the Bambu Labs A1 Mini, this one also more inside the slicer software than in the actual printer itself. The slicer already has the optimum temperature for many different printing materials. The Ender 2 Pro, and also with Cura slicer, which is not specifically Creality's slicer, it's some other outside slicer, but particularly with this pair of like printer and slicer software, I had to fine-tune the temperatures that I want to print at. So if the temperature is too high, you end up with a problem called stringing, where when the printer is not printing anymore, it's like moving from one location to another. Some plastic may still dribble out of the nozzle. This is basically the equivalent of trying to write on a piece of paper, but you never fully lift your pen off the page, and then you end up with straying between the letters. And of course, if the temperature is too low, the plastic doesn't melt sufficiently to come out the nozzle, and it causes under extrusion. So if you look at those pieces that my Ender 2 Pro has printed, you see all these small holes here and all these like between the lines. This is caused by when the nozzle is moving out, sometimes the plastic doesn't come out, and like rather than having a straight stream of plastic, it's intermittent, and therefore I got holes. The Bambu Labs isn't completely free of this issue either. Like you can see this particular piece here, it's printed on the Bambu Labs A1 Mini, and I still have one under extruded line, but you can see how much less it is. And there was another problem that I kind of experienced on my old printer, but I managed to fix it once and for all. But the process of fixing it is such a headache, and that problem is heat creep, and as well as, I think, because I wanted to mod and replace parts of the printer, think of it as the original Shengshou 4x4 coming totally square, but a lot of people like to use sandpaper and like make these holes. So you can do this. Yep. So the Ender 2 Pro also has a bunch of mods that was recommended to it, and I followed. But ultimately, I managed to get my printer better and able to print PETG at the end, but during the upgrading process, there was one period where I actually had the nozzle was hot, and then heat conduction actually brought the heat up the nozzle and caused the plastic to melt in a higher up location than it's supposed to be. And then it can melt and solidify in places that it shouldn't be, and it jammed the printer really bad. In fact, if you scroll back in my YouTube channel and watch my PLA versus PETG Rubik's Cube Edition video, you would have seen some examples of what happened. But back to the topic of print temperature, I would say that so far having pre-decided temperatures inside pretty much made me have a much better print quality and none of these like heat creeping or like under extrusion issues. Think of it as your cube having double anchors instead of single anchor, which makes it much difficult for pieces to pop out accidentally during your solves. Finally, the Bambu Labs A1 Mini is actually a direct drive printer. So what is direct drive? So with my Ender 2 Pro, it was a Bowden tube printer. So actually, technically you can still see a tube on the Bambu Labs A1 Mini, but what the older generation of printers used to have is the extruder, which is the gear that pushes the filament forward, is originally located over here before the tube starts, and then it pushes the plastic through the whole tube and into the nozzle. With the Bambu Labs printer, it again, actually quite a lot of the good things I can say about this printer are also not unique to it actually. The gear that pushes the plastic forward is down here. So the negative thing is that now this part is heavier and it has more momentum and moving around, but then this printer comes with vibration calibration. The positive thing is you can pretty much push plastic out with more force and more reliability, and this printer can actually print much faster. Like for a print that takes my Ender 2 Pro 2 hours to finish, my Bambu Labs A1 Mini can do it in 40 minutes. Think of it as having magnets in the outer pieces of your cube, which help to keep the thing relatively aligned when you're turning fast and like prevent deforming. Overall, I'm really satisfied with how my Bambu Labs A1 Mini is performing, and I'm looking forward to actually doing more ambitious prints with it. So the thing is, with my Ender 2 Pro, the biggest cube I actually printed was 4x4 and 5x5. When it comes to cube design and mechanism, 4 and 5 are the same thing because even cubes are pretty much odd cubes with hidden middle layers. Attempted to print a 7x7 before, but it exploded. So I'm actually looking forward to doing things up to 6x6 and 7x7 tier and possibly even bigger.